Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark, give me the Zuck.
Co-founder and CEO of Facebook.
Who knows where we're going next?
Harvard University dropout.
Who does that?
Billionaire at age 23.
No one deserves that much money.
May or may not be a lizard.
I am not a lizard.
Had an Oscar-winning movie made about him and his business.
Sorry, my Prada's at the cleaners.
Got in hot water regarding the usage of personal data by Facebook.
Your user agreement sucks.
Is now trying to create the metaverse.
Starting with the most important experience of all.
Sweet baby rays.
You already know all of this, but you may not know about the 4 programs Mark Zuckerberg created before starting Facebook. On today's episode of Internet Underground, we're going to talk about them. Number 1. Zucknet. It seems that even from a young age, Mark Zuckerberg had a deep love for computers and programming. Mark spent his early years being raised in New York within a medium-sized family. His parents both worked in healthcare-related industries, with his mother being a psychiatrist and his father a dentist. And although not an engineer, Mark's dad happened to be an early computer enthusiast and saw the potential for computers to change the way people work and communicate. When Mark was 10 years old and feeling bored with school, his father introduced him to his own Altair computer. Mark was instantly hooked. The following year for his birthday, Mark's dad gave him his own computer and a copy of C++ for Dummies to teach him how to code. After showing eagerness to learn more, he went on to be tutored by a software engineer named David Newman. In an interview with The New Yorker, David admitted that it was often tough to stay ahead of him and that he quickly realized that Mark was a young coding prodigy. Before you knew it, Mark started taking a graduate computer course on Thursday nights at Mercy College. When his father dropped him off for his first class, the instructor looked at him while pointing to Mark and said, "You can't bring him to the classroom with you." It's kind of crazy looking back at Mark's early start with computers and realizing that at such a young age, he was already a natural at programming. What might be even crazier is the fact that Mark might not have even realized it yet himself. Mark said this when asked about his experience learning to code.
Learning how to program didn't start off as wanting to learn all of computer science or trying to master this discipline or anything like that. It just started off because I wanted to do this one simple thing. I wanted to make something that was fun for myself and my sister.
And that's exactly what he went on to do. One evening in 1996, Mark's dad told the family that he was looking for a more efficient way to announce his dental patient's arrival than just simply relying on the receptionist yelling across the room. Mark responded to this by creating a piece of software using the basic programming language. The program allowed computers in the house and the office to send messages to each other, very similar to AOL Instant Messenger, which came out the following year. Mark would go on to call his new chat software Zucknet. The program was used primarily within his father's dental office, but Mark also used it so that he and his sisters could message each other from across their home. While having a useful and practical purpose for his father, Zucknet was also something that was just fun for Mark and his siblings. Mark's older sister later told People.com that this was the first example of when he started building things, and after this, he never stopped. Number 2. Synapse Media Player. You might remember this scene from The Social Network.
You invented something in high school too, right?
An app for an MP3 player that recognizes your taste in music.
Maybe you're trying to buy it?
Microsoft.
Fast forward to the year 2002, and Mark is now in the last stretch of high school. Mark attended a prep school in New Hampshire called Phillips Exeter Academy, and it was right here where he continued to pursue his passion for computers. During his time at Phillips Exeter, Mark met fellow student and computer nerd Adam D'Angelo. For a final in their computer class, the duo developed an audio playback client called Synapse. The application used artificial intelligence to learn the user's listening habits and would then go on to recommend music based on the tastes of the listener, very similar to that of Pandora and the more modern Last.fm. I have to imagine they got a pretty good grade on the project because Mark and Adam quickly decided to release the project to the public under the name Intelligent Media Group. By the start of 2003, you could try out the program yourself by downloading it from Mark and Adam's website, synapseai.com. Unfortunately, the site is no longer online and has been manually excluded from the Wayback Machine. After some digging, I was able to find one screenshot of the site from 2003, the Team Synapse About page, which just so happens to include the developer bio of Mark. Mark Zuckerberg, developer guy, team leader, graphic skills, webmaster flex, anti-aliases by hand, likes Chinese girls, programmer god, the nerd. If you hit it and that thing feels deeper, say his name. Okay, Mark was still a teenager when he wrote this, but like, come on, man. Come on, dude. Mark, do better. His co-founder, Adam D'Angelo's bio isn't really that much better, to be honest with you. And while I couldn't find a direct screenshot of it, users on forums discussing the program quoted a section of the website where apparently Mark and Adam were suggesting that the main selling point of the program was to lure Chinese women to the bedroom. So take that as you will, I guess. Speaking of forums though, Synapse Media Player was actually featured on the popular tech site Slashdot, which back then was a pretty huge deal. Like, it was pretty much the 2003 equivalent to being one of the top voted posts on the front page of Reddit. Because of this, the post quickly drew attention from computer nerds online, but it also caught the eye of one of the biggest technology companies in the world, Microsoft. Here's the Harvard Crimson with more. Almost immediately, Synapse was fending off calls from Winamp, Windows Media Player, MoodLogic, and Music Match. Team Synapse began communicating with Microsoft, but Zuckerberg says they backed out of the deal when they began to suspect that the multi-billion-dollar corporation was going to rip them off.
One of the companies offered us $950,000, but wanted us to go work for them for 3 years. We wanted to go to college, so we said no.
To ensure they weren't going to be taken advantage of, Zuckerberg and D'Angelo split the $12,000 price of a patent, confident that their company's future profits would pay off.
It's important to us that people are able to use the software for free. Software belongs to everyone. No matter what kind of deal we get into, we're going to try to keep it free.
So, Synapse didn't really end up going anywhere, or taking off like Mark and Adam may have hoped. The two both got busy with school, and the project was abandoned. It's interesting to think what Mark's life would have been like if he ended up taking that deal with Microsoft. The same can be said with Adam D'Angelo. He would go on to serve as the CTO for Facebook up until 2009, which just so happens to be the year when he co-founded the site Quora.com. Number 3. CourseMatch. By the end of high school, Mark was getting ready to move to Cambridge to attend Harvard University's computer science program. Being accepted into an Ivy League school at 17 and already having an offer from Microsoft to buy his company, it was clear that he was headed in the right direction. By the time he was attending his morning classes, Mark was already considered a programming expert by his fellow students. While working through his homework and problem sets, Mark decided to work on his next big side project, CourseMatch. Simply put, CourseMatch enabled students to see which other students are enrolled in their classes. Based on this information, at the start of the semester, they'd know which classes to switch to in order to have class with their friends. Unlike Synapse, CourseMatch is actually indexed on the Wayback Machine. Here's a screenshot of what the login page looked like in 2003. Welcome to Harvard CourseMatch. This site allows you to see what students are in your classes, what classes individual students are taking, and whom other students like to study with. It will also report on general trends in the course choices made by the student body and different groups therein. So far, 380 people have registered and listed 1,164 classes for this term. So tell your friends about CourseMatch. The more people that sign up, the better the site will be for everyone. With CourseMatch being a private site exclusively for Harvard students, no other screenshots are known to exist. While trying to find more info on the site, I found a quote from Mark talking about it when he was interviewed by Tim Ferriss.
When I was getting started at Harvard, I was really interested in the idea of how people could come together to create an understanding of things that they couldn't do separately. I built this thing, CourseMatch. People just have such a thirst for understanding what's going on with the people around them in their community. Even something as simple as just understanding context around what courses someone is going to take ended up being a really interesting thing. Much more than you'd think.
I can definitely see the value that CourseMatch provided to students at Harvard. In fact, I could have for sure used a program like this back when I was in college. I remember me and my friend going on Rate My Professors to figure out which professors were the best and which ones didn't use textbooks so we could save some tuition money. If you're a computer science major and looking for a project to work on, I could definitely imagine that even now making your own version of CourseMatch would be a great first coding project that your classmates would definitely use. Number 4. Facemash. Okay, this has to be the most well-known program that Mark created before Facebook and is heavily documented during the beginning of the social network. One Tuesday night during his sophomore year, Mark took to his blog stating, "I need to think of something to occupy my mind. Easy enough, now I just need an idea." While looking at class photos of Harvard students, the thought of putting some of the faces next to farm animals and having people vote on which one was more attractive popped into Mark's head. After his friend Billy suggested it'd be better to just compare the student photos with each other, the development of Facemash commenced. Over the course of the rest of the Tuesday night and into the early hours of Wednesday, Mark continued to document the process of creating the site on his blog. In order to gather all of the photos of students, he spent the night hacking into different servers that held the image files he was looking for. Surprisingly, the film adaptation of this night was actually pretty faithful to what happened, aside from insinuating that the reason Mark created Facemash was because his girlfriend broke up with him. By the time 3 a.m. rolled around, it was time to push the site live. A link to the site was forwarded to many house and student group email lists over the week and had fully gone viral across the campus by the weekend. As you'd expect, the site drew a lot of attention and mixed feedback. By Sunday night, the outrage caused by the website led Mark to shut the site down. By the time the site was taken offline, there had been 450 visitors to the site who had voted on their peers' photos at least 22,000 times. According to Mark, it wasn't his intention for the site to blow up, and he had only meant to share it with a few friends. Mark said this in an apology.
"I don't see how it can go back online. Issues about violating people's privacy don't seem to be surmountable. The primary concern is hurting people's feelings. I am not willing to risk insulting anyone."
And while he seemed remorseful for creating the site, this didn't change the fact that Mark had still violated the campus computer policy found in the Harvard Student Handbook. Shortly after issuing his apology, Mark was brought before Harvard's administrative board, accused of violating individual privacy, breaching security, and violating copyrights with Facemash. Fully ready to be kicked out of school, Mark started packing his bags. But luckily for him, he was told that he wouldn't be forced to withdraw or face suspension. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you all know what happens next. Mark has a totally original idea for a social network site made specifically for Harvard students. Mark later went on the record stating that Facemash ultimately had nothing to do with the creation of Facebook, but personally, I feel like that would be too good of a coincidence. So there we have it, the journey of Mark Zuckerberg's creation that would eventually lead to him building Facebook, the site that would go on to change the world. For the better, right?
We have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works.
God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains.
People who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression than people who spend less time on Facebook.
He's a good person. I also think he has too much power.
I heard he was going to run for president. That wouldn't be too frightening, I don't think.